Welcome back to the Hoopstop, everybody. Today, we're going to be ranking every NBA team's starting shooting guard. We're going to keep going on this series and eventually finish it with ranking every NBA team's starting center. Hope you guys enjoy. Starting off the list at number 30, we have Josh Jackson. It was kind of hard to find Detroit's starting shooting guard because they had so many different lineups throughout the season, but the most popular one had Josh Jackson at shooting guard. At 29, we have Kent Bazemore from the Golden State Warriors. There's nothing much to really say about him. He's more of a role player that should be used off the bench, but because of Klay Thompson's injury and Kelly Oubre's injury, he emerged as the new starter for Golden State. Coming in at 28, I have Gary Harris. Gary Harris is having one of the worst offensive seasons of his career, and the reason that he's not in dead last is because of his defense. At 26 and 27, I have two guys that could pretty much go either way on this list. They're both really good defenders and can shoot the three ball really well, which is why I could see you putting Reggie Bullock higher than KCP or either one higher than the other. At 25, I have Derek White, who's a pretty underrated player for the San Antonio Spurs. He's averaging a nice 15.4 points per game, but the reason he's still this low is because he's not shooting the ball that well. I have Dante DiVincenzo at 24. When the Bucks drafted him, I thought that he could be really good, but he's been kind of disappointing. He's still got pretty good defense though, and still has a lot of potential for the future. And at 23, I have Kevin Porter Jr. I know you think this may be a little low for Kevin Porter Jr., but keep in mind, this is only his second season, and he only played 26 games this season. Also, he was on a very bad Rockets team, so his stats are just a small sample size of his true skill. So before I can rank him higher, I need to see what he can do next season on a young and competing Rockets team. At 26, I have Eric Bledsoe. I know he may have had a really bad year this year, possibly the worst in his career, but it's not all his fault. It was a horrible fit, putting him at shooting guard alongside Lonzo, and he's still a great defender no matter what situation he's put in. Up next on the list is Duncan Robinson. He's probably the best shooter on this list, but the reason he's not higher is because the guys ahead of him are just all around better than him. At 20, I have another underrated player, Malik Beasley. Malik Beasley is a walking bucket. The only problem is he can't really do much else besides score. But he is really good at scoring the basketball, which is why he ranks this high. Next on the list is Will Barton. Will Barton is a great player for the Denver Nuggets. He's great on defense, he can create his own shot somewhat, and he can always knock down open threes. It's exactly what the Nuggets need. Unfortunately for them, Will Barton got hurt and wasn't able to play against the Suns in that playoff series. He may have affected it a little bit, but overall he's just a great player for the Denver Nuggets. At 18 and 17, I have another one that could go either way. Seth Curry and Buddy Hield are both great shooters, and I wouldn't be mad if you put either one over the other. Seth Curry may look better right now just because of how much he helped the 76ers in trying to accomplish their playoff run, but Buddy Hield has kind of been silenced by Luke Walton, their coach, and the Kings' game plan. I have Bogdan Bogdanović at 16. He was a key part for this Hawks team in the playoffs. But not just the playoffs. Most people don't understand how good he was in the regular season, which is why he's ranked this high. And at 15, I have an extremely underrated player in Tim Hardaway Jr. I think he was the better player in that Tim Hardaway Jr. and Kristaps Porzingis package, and he really showed that in the playoffs. While Luka had basically no help, Tim Hardaway Jr. was the only X factor, and he actually played pretty decent in that series. He also played really good throughout the regular season. 14, I have a fan favorite, Lou Dort. Now, Lou Dort could be classified as a small forward, but I made the ranking every NBA team starting point guard in the last video, and I put Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in there. It was before the Kemba Walker trade. But now after that Kemba Walker trade, most likely Shea will be shooting guard and Dort will be small forward. But for the sake of the video, we'll just act like it's before that trade. And Lou Dort, he's remarkable on defense, and his offense improved heavily this season, which is why he's ranked this high. These next couple of players are really close, but I have Dylan Brooks one spot ahead of Lou Dort, and that's mainly just because Dylan Brooks is much more skilled on offense. I'm not saying Lou Dort can't become a lot more skilled than Dylan Brooks, but as of right now, Dylan Brooks is definitely the better offensive player. And Dylan Brooks is still really good on defense, which is what gives him the slight edge. At 12, I have Marcus Smart. He not only makes plays on offense, but also on defense, mainly because of his hustle, grit, and determination. This is what sets him apart from some other defenders that just have skills on defense. Marcus Smart has hustle and drive. And the last spot before going into the top 10, number 11, goes to Terry Rozier, Scary Terry. He is one of the most underrated and underappreciated players in the league. And this season, he transitioned to shooting guard with LaMelo playing point guard after they found out how good LaMelo was. And he's dominated at shooting guard, averaging over 20 points per game on the season. Starting off the top 10 at number 10, we have Fred VanVleet. Fred VanVleet has really improved over the last 2 years since the Raptors won the NBA Finals, and he's elite at creating his own shot and knocking down the tray ball. He's also a very good defender and very underrated in my opinion. Following Fred VanVleet, at number 9 we have Caris LeVert. I think Caris LeVert's extremely underrated, and although we didn't get to see him play much in a Pacers jersey because of his MRI that revealed a cancerous tumor, but when he did play for the Pacers, he was unstoppable. And if he would have been able to play in the playing game against the Wizards, I think the Pacers might have had a real shot at making the playoffs. Next up at number 8 is Colin Sexton. It's crazy that he was drafted in 2018, but I already have him as the 8th best shooting guard in the league. And that's because of his scoring. He's able to score at will and was averaging over 24 points per game this season. He's still so young that he could improve, and I could even see him making an all-star team in the future, maybe even an all-NBA team. At number 7, I have CJ McCollum. I know CJ gets a ton of hate, and he got so much hate in this year's playoffs, and I'll admit, he did not play the best. But he's still such a good NBA player, and in the regular season, he was lighting teams up. I do think he is best fit as a point guard, so I hope that he gets traded somewhere, or maybe Damian Lillard gets traded somewhere, and we get to see CJ's true potential. These last 6 players I would consider to be a tier above the players we just mentioned, like Colin Sexton, Caris LeVert, CJ McCollum. As in, those players were great, but these players are a whole nother level. Starting off at number 6, we have Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine averaged over 27 points per game this season for the Chicago Bulls, but unfortunately it didn't really translate to wins, which is why he's this low on this list. Before we can continue the video, I have to give a huge shout out to Smooth My Balls for sponsoring this video. If you ever want to get the perfect shave down there to impress any female you ever come across, Smooth My Balls is the product to use. You can even use the link down in the description below to get 25% off your very own Smooth My Balls product. Now, let's get back into the video. Coming in at number 5, I have Bradley Beal. I do think Bradley Beal is a bit overrated, but that's not taking anything away from his greatness. He's one of, if not the best scorer in the NBA right now, but he can't really do anything else besides score the basketball. He's not very good at defense by any means, which is why I would take all 4 guys ahead of him if I was starting a team. These next 3 guys, 4, 3, and 2, are very close, and you could honestly go either way with how you put them. At number 4, though, I have Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell has shown just how good he is when everyone thought he was going to be a bust just because of his size. But in the playoffs, he's been putting up historical stats and scoring the basketball at will. I also have him over Beal because of leadership, as he may not have a conference championship or even made it to the conference finals, but he's led his team to the playoffs and led his team to the second round. Coming in at number 3, I have Paul George. You can say what you want about Paul George, Pandemic P, yada yada. He's earned that all back this season. His play in the playoffs was tremendous, and the reason I have him over Donovan Mitchell is because of defense. He's shown year after year that he's a great defensive player, and people forget that just a couple years ago, he was number 3 in MVP voting. This was definitely the closest out of any part in the video, putting Devin Booker ahead of Paul George. Devin Booker just made the NBA Finals. Without a super team, he sticked with his team, and it paid off. They have a bright future, and if Devin Booker keeps working hard and keeps working the way he is, the Phoenix Suns are going to be a problem for years to come. In first place, and I don't think it's very close to be honest, I have James Harden. James Harden's shown over the years how great of a scorer he is, and this season he's shown just how great of a playmaker he is. James Harden is someone that I would consider a top 10 player in the NBA, and he is one of the most skilled basketball players at the moment. Thank you guys for watching. If you had anything you would disagree with, leave it down below. I'm always open to hear your guys' opinions. If not, be sure to leave a like, maybe a subscribe if you really enjoy the content. I always post content like this, all basketball content related. This is the Hoopstop, and we out.